And I said, well, can't you just tell me? He says, no, you got to go to India and you got to meet this guru and get this mantra. He's like, that's a long ways. So he finally convinced him, and he gets on an airplane and he finds his way up to some remote village, and finds the guru and then says, I'm here to get the mantra. And the guru said, yes, I can give you the mantra. And he said, what is it? And he said, listen very carefully. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the guy went, are you kidding me? I came all the way, I think this airplane, and come all to a village and that's it? He says, thanks for nothing. He says, no, thank you, thank you, thank you. So he was all upset and went off in a huff and he'd make his way back to the airport. And he said, if I came all the way, I guess maybe I should try it. So he comes up to the ticket agent and he checks on, he says to the ticket agent, thank you. And he gets on the board of the plane. Stewardess is seating him. He says, thank you. And they're coming around to offer the drinks or the snacks. And he says, thank you. And he's getting off the plane and the pilots are waiting there, exiting the plane. And he says, thank you. And he was just starting to become so happy. He says, wow, this mantra actually works. That's just a little icebreaker there. Thank you for coming. It's so is my thing up there. Yeah. So tonight's topic, wholeness, an evolved spiritual worldview. So I thought we could start out with a little objective here of my, not just this talk, but in general. I was trying to put together just a brief statement in contemporary language, why we're here. This is called Sat Sangha. Sat means eternal and Sangha means company. Sat also means we're in good company. So to encourage one another on our shared journey of self-discovery through our relationship with the original person, as confirmed by spiritual mentors, fellow travelers on the spiritual path, and sacred writings. Tried to make it a little more contemporary. In the Sanskrit, the terms are guru, sadhu, and shastra, but it's a little foreign to most of us. But walking the spiritual path, I once had a therapist who was helping me sort through some issues, and she told me, I'd like you to think of me that we're just walking together on a journey. I'm not, superior. We're walking together on a journey, and so I'd like to try to that we all have our ups and downs. Spiritual life is sort of like swimming upstream against the current of materialistic society, and at any given moment, some of us are stumbling, some of us are walking tall. So this type of association, we're just here to encourage one another. I'm not here to be, I may be playing the role of a teacher, but I'm hoping that you will teach me by your sincere eagerness to hear, and I'll try to get out of the way of the teachings. We're simply trying to evoke the presence of divine knowledge, and we all have within us, you could say, a genius, spiritual genius. There's a feature of the Lord within everyone's heart. So I'm just sort of saying these things to help me enter into the right mood here. That I'm hoping that something will come out that you need to hear. And I can't read your minds, but having confidence in the Lord in the heart, hopefully something will resonate with you. So I'm going to begin with a little invocation prayer. Om Agyanatimanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual teachers have opened my eyes. The torchlight of knowledge I offer my respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. So again, the topic of wholeness. This is kind of a contemporary a word now for a worldview that's kind of emerging. I've actually picked it up from some Christian mystic traditions where they call it an integrative worldview. But I'm not going to really speak about that. I'm just using that term wholeness. Maybe some of you can help me. What comes to mind when we say the word whole? Like we got Whole Foods, and so
untainted.
Untainted. Unity.
I just think of it. She's your Upanishad invitation.
That's what I'm going to read from. You can't say that. Yes. Complete.
In this context, I think of the word, I always associated wholeness with the word holy.
Ah, that's
They're
nice.
actually related, that when someone is complete in themselves, they're holy.
Ah,
So that's kind of a little play on. I like to do that with words sometimes.
yeah,
These connections. But I always think that, yeah, a holy person is a whole person.
yeah.
Not lacking.
Not lacking? Yeah. So here's all those are wonderful. Entire. We said complete. And full. Did someone say full? Full up? Full. So now the suffix ness. We have wholeness. So ness is a suffix which means a state or condition or a quality. We're saying wholeness, this state or that quality of being whole. Or we have words like whatever, goodness, the state of being in good quality or condition, or darkness, state of being dark. So in Sanskrit, they have the same suffix. It's called tva, T-V-A, tva. We have words like tattva or sattva. Tat means that. And tva, that suffix, a state or a condition or quality. So what does that mean? Thatness? Tattva? So it means a fundamental category of truth. Satya means truth, but tattva means a fundamental category of truth. Like in Sanskrit, we have Vishnu tattva or Guru tattva. It's a fundamental category of truth. So I'd like to read from the Sri Upanishad. There's kind of was the launching point for this talk. And Ishopanishad is one of 108 Upanishads. And this is can be a little bit of a confusing verse, but we'll see how you fare. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vishishyate. Translation: the personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he's completely perfect, all phenomenal world are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So there's a short commentary. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs from it. By His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the Supersoul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, and impersonal Brahman realization is the realization of his Sat, or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma, or Supersoul, realization is the realization of his Sat and Chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. Realization of the personality of Godhead, however, is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects in complete form, vigraha. Thus, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were any less than his creation in any way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. And I'm just going to skip to the last paragraph. The completeness of human life can only be realized when one engages in the service of the complete whole. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they are dovetailed with the complete whole. When everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels also become complete in themselves. A lot of completes in there. And complete, the word complete, the pleat portion of it means to fill. So when we're feeling incomplete, what does that feel like?
A void.
A void?
Sadness, unhappiness.
Yeah. Misery. Anxiety. How about dissatisfaction? Yeah. So we're going to segue into that in the latter part of this talk. What's the feeling of being incomplete? Mind that a little bit. So, worldview. What are some of the influences? Well, first, let's say what is a worldview? Worldview is a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world, a set of beliefs about fundamental aspects of reality that ground and influence one's perceiving, thinking, knowing, and doing. So it's pretty, you could say, self-evident worldview, how you're viewing the world. But what are some of the things that shape our worldviews? Conditioning. Culture. Environment. Friends.
What you consume.
Parents. What you consume.
What you drive.
What you drive. Yeah, the city, I came back from San Diego, I went to a trip in San Diego, and it's a much different vibe there. Very passionate. Everybody's in a hurry. Come back to Tucson, it's just like a lot slower pace. So yeah, who said environment? Did you say environment? Yeah. So, and we have patterns of thought, in some ways we can say this conditioning, these various factors that affect our worldviews. What does that mean, really? Is that I'm not a neuroscience authority, but the little bit I've heard is that in your brain we actually develop neural pathways that facilitate our thinking, sort of like grooves. In Sanskrit, they're called samskaras. We have patterns of thought. When you wear away a groove, it's usually like water. When water moves like through a canyon or something, it takes the path of like least resistance, right? So in order to facilitate certain thinking patterns, we develop sort of like grooves in our mind that are, the path of least resistance. And then the more and more we, as they say nowadays, we sit in echo chambers, we just hang out with people who think the same way we do, or watch whatever news programs that, reinforce patterns of thinking. And part of spiritual life is to become, not just to mature in general, is to become a little broad-minded, but we're stuck in these thinking patterns, and then again reinforcing them by just hanging out with people who think the same way. We don't really grow so much. It's like when we're being challenged a little bit with people's different points of view, it's a healthy exercise. So wholeness, evolving, an evolved spiritual worldview. So evolve means to develop gradually. So if we're going to develop a broader spiritual worldview, which, as was being described here, Krishna or the Lord Om. Everybody's heard of Om. It's pretty in vogue these days. Om, in that word for word transliteration, Om means the complete whole. And in different sects of Eastern thought, the word Om invokes certain understanding. But in our Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage, great sages, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they describe that the word Om, which is composed of 3 syllables, A, U, and M. The A refers to Krishna, the U refers to Radha, and the M refers to the living entity. So it is a transcendental sound vibration, really non-different from the Hare Krishna mantra, but it's sort of cryptic. And the impersonalist schools of thought that God is just a formless energy, it sort of co-opted the Om to refer to really nothing, just abstract. But different, if you go online, there's just a whole list of all these different sects that they'll say, oh, it refers to Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, it refers to mind, body, word, just the 3. So anyways, we're going with the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It's our lineage, so. And so the worldview, a spiritual worldview, Krishna describes that, because what if we're going to be influenced, we have a choice, who we'll be influenced by, the association we keep. Some of the things, these thought patterns that are deeply ingrained, it may be difficult to change that, but especially when you're older, that's why they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because these thinking patterns are deeply entrenched. So, but with knowledge and practice, we can. That knowledge is not just theoretical, though. It has to be realized knowledge. There's a nice excerpt from a commentary in the 6th chapter in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna, or Prabhupada, mentions something about how ineffective actually just theoretical knowledge is. Let's see, I'm finding here. Thought I had it marked. Okay. A person is said to be, this is the verse, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. This is a little cryptic also, because what's Krishna speaking here, seeing pebbles, stones, or gold the same. What are pebbles? Pebbles are just small stones. So Krishna is saying large things and small things. He sees as the same. Or gold. So he's saying quality or quantity and quality. Gold is very valuable, relatively speaking. So Krishna is saying that a yogi, he sees a oneness. So we're talking about this Om and this completeness. So part of spiritual, an important part of spiritual consciousness is to see beyond duality. And what's blocking our spiritual worldview is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are different layers of coverings that the pure soul entering the material atmosphere. The first one is called Tamishra. Tamishra means darkness. And this first covering is like layers of an onion, there's all these different layers, So the first layer, this Tamishra, is born of anger or envy of God, actually. The desire to be a free enjoyer, an independent free enjoyer like God, is this, you could say, primal covering, that first covering. And then there's Anda Tamishra. Anda means blind. So now we're going to go to the next layer, Anda Tamishra. And that means to accept the body as the self. And death is the ultimate end. And there are no consequences which lead to an irresponsible life. If we are just finished at the time of death, then what does it matter what I do in this life? There's no consequences. So that leads to an irresponsible life. There's no sense of necessarily duty. It's all just, we're all just a bunch of chemicals. So that's the second layer. The third layer is called tamas, which means ignorance. Not knowing anything about the soul. This is my body, and anything in relationship to the body is mine. I and mine. It was a song that George Harrison wrote, I, me, mine. So this illusion is now we're going deeper into illusion. Not only are we identifying with the body, but things in relationship to the body are mine. My family, because our bodies are related. And by extension, my city. I'm a Tucsonian or a San Diegan or whatever I am. Because my body is located in this particular geographical area, or I was born in a particular country. I'm an American. So these are all just different, like the illusion is, the layers are becoming denser. The next level is moha. Moha means illusion. This bodily concept is increasing deeper, and what happens is that we form sectarian societies, families and nationalities, and we fight with one another. Sound familiar? Going on in the world for the most part is that due to this bodily concept of life and the extensions of the body, we form these, they call tribalism, and we find our tribe, and we are in competition with one another. And the last covering is called Maha Moha. And Maha Moha means madness. We become mad after material enjoyment. People just, it's like a fever. Like, I gotta have it. I'm just driven for sense enjoyment. So that's a little, if we understand like the extent of our illusion, then it may wake us up a little bit. Just like if you go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, you just have a mild case of the flu. But if the doctor says you have cancer, like you're going to take it really serious. Like, if you don't treat this, you're going to die. So if we understand a little bit about how deeply enmeshed we are in illusion, then it will give us impetus to like, I need some real potent medicine. The sacred writings throughout the world, throughout all cultures, there are sacred writings. Of course, we're primarily focused on the Vedas. And what the teachings of the Vedas or any bona fide scripture, it's to help us reprogram our brain. Like we're in this deep illusion of who we are, who is God, and what the world is. That the world, the first stage of God realization is described in the Bhagavad Quran, is that we start to see manifestations in the external world that are representatives of God. The sun, the moon, the ocean. These are in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asked Krishna, how am I to meditate on you in this world? And Krishna gives a whole list of various items. I'm the taste of water and the light of the sun and the moon. Because of our deep illusion, we're not able to directly perceive God immediately. We've got to sort of peel back the layers of the illusion. So it begins when we first initially, at least theoretically, that we're an eternal soul. And that's the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the 2nd chapter. There's a whole section that's just sort of emphasized. Before we get to talking about God, first understand that we're a part of God, a soul. And then once we have some at least theoretical understanding, then we can, move on from it. It's just like if you take a drop of water out of the ocean, you can understand, the qualities of that drop, you can understand something of the ocean. So we can study ourselves, and that's really what the scriptures are. We may think we're reading about other historical personalities, like Kardama Muni or Hiranyakashipu, but we're actually studying ourselves. These personalities in the scriptures they've been cherry picked by the great sages to demonstrate the most important lessons that we need to learn, how to peel back these layers of illusion. So it's just a little easier when we're hearing stories about somebody else, because our defense mechanisms don't typically, if you're being told directly, you're an illusion, but no, we hear about someone like Hiranyakashipu, some demonic person, and the materialistic tenets they have, but it's actually us, It's actually, that's what the scriptures are teaching. It's just how we can understand ourselves through this, sort of from a removed position. We don't have to feel like we're being directly insulted. we tend to be a little defensive, when people criticize us, Like Shesika Prabhu has a nice mantra. He says, I live to be I live to be corrected. And for someone who's not, if we're not looking for respect, you'll be very peaceful, It's when we're looking for respect, that's when we tend to get a little bent out of shape, You cut me off! How dare you? Don't you know who I am? Or I opened up my email and there was a billing notice from the cable company, and they screwed up my bill again. I spent like an hour on the telephone with them sorting out my bill, and then they screwed it up again. And I was like, man, they're so spaced out. Now I got to call them again. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, who do they think they are? Don't they know who I am? Like my time is important. I can't spend another hour with this cable company. I'm sort out my problems. So this is, it was like immediately I thought, man, and I'm supposed to speak tonight about how we should be shanti, we should be peaceful. And so it was good. Interesting, shalom. I was looking up shalom, the Jewish word about peace. And I don't know if it's linguistically related, but shanti in Sanskrit means peace, and shalom. And it's interesting too, shalom has om in it. Shalom. Not related, but just coincidentally. So. Okay, so now that we've talked about these layers of illusion, now we're saying, how do we evolve? How do we gradually move towards that spiritual worldview? And because these coverings were steeped in what is called tamas, ignorance, and rajas, passion. And we're trying to gradually move forward or upward towards sattva, or goodness. And that word sat, again, and tva, that suffix, a state or a condition of goodness, a wholesomeness, balance, purity, etc. And why do we want this? Why do we want to move? Because in a position of goodness, we can see things clearly. In these lower modes of nature, these coverings that we were speaking about, it's like if you woke up in the morning one day and everything was blurry, would you think, oh my God, the world just got blurry? No, you think, what's wrong with my eyes? The world didn't get blurry, it's your own vision. So if we're not able to see with the spiritual worldview, it's kind of like what's wrong with the world? It's like, no, what's wrong with our eyes? So the idea of peeling back these layers and adopting not only just the theoretical knowledge, but a lifestyle change. A lifestyle change which keeps us free from these lower, these tamishra and anditamishra, tamas, that lower consciousness, that covering, this evolving to goodness. And there's a book, it's called The Journey of Self-Discovery. So the word discover, if you look at that word, discover. So we're going to remove the cover. We want to discover ourselves, then what does that mean? We have to remove the cover, these coverings of illusion and ignorance. And one of the results is, we were talking about peacefulness. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna describes that a person who is undisturbed by desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but always remains still, can alone achieve peace, not the person who strives to satisfy such desires. So why is the ocean undisturbed when there's so many rivers flowing into it? Little help here?
Because it's bigger than the rivers. It's focused on its direction.
Okay. It's whole?
It's below the rivers.
I hadn't thought about that. Sea level.
I just heard the saying, the ocean is the king of all waters because it stays below it.
Ah.
It goes down from
Well, in the commentary, Prabhu said the ocean is so deep. It's so deep. It's so vast that undisturbed, it doesn't overflow. Although, whatever, with all the climate change stuff, well, that's the whatever, the icebergs melting and so on. But in a perfect world where the ocean is not being affected by climate change, you don't, unless there's some whatever hurricane or what do they call it, surge, there's some storm, there's some unnatural or some kind of disturbance. The normal, tsunami or something. Normally the ocean does not, you can go down to the beach and not worry about being sucked up by the ocean. So, and finally, coming to this level of sattva or goodness is it's a precursor to a complete spiritual worldview, because we're trying to develop this sense of oneness, in that everything is connected to God, and a sense of existence of anything separate from God. That's one level. That's one way of understanding duality. Krishna describes that he's the source of everything, material and spiritual. Everything is divine, and we say matter and spirit just conventionally, but ultimately everything is divine. It's a different type of divinity in that the matter is always changing its form, but it's eternally existing. It's a divine energy of the Lord. So to see something as disconnected from the Lord is one type of duality, and a precursor to complete spiritual vision is to see the unity of all beings, that all living beings are equal, rather than these labels that we put on each other. You're young or old or pretty or ugly, or us and them. These it's called black and white thinking, actually, this dualistic kind of thinking or vision. Well, we're not seeing the underlying unity of all things. It's called Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasotati Nakamsati. When our consciousness is, when we're seeing the equality of all living beings, and even the language we use, just like in our culture or our tradition, we sort of adopted this name. I'm a devotee, and someone is a non-devotee, and it's there in the literature. But I think we have to be mindful that on a fundamental level, everyone is a part of God. Everyone is a child of God. And some are actively pursuing their relationship with God, and some have yet to pursue that relationship with God. But everyone is a devotee in a fundamental level. On a functional level, if we say, God is the Father of all living entities, out, at the DMV or something, or passport, and they ask for your father's name, you write in God. On a functional level, we have the labels are there for, on a functional level, but on a fundamental level, everyone is equal. Doesn't mean everybody's the same, but in quality, we're all eternal, we're all part and parcel of God, but we're all a unique individual. So that type of vision, that's a precursor. We have to come to that level before we can really enter into relationship with God. We have to see the oneness of all living things and treat all living beings with respect. So that's, rather than try to jump too far ahead, bite off more than we can chew. It's like, well, I want to see God now. Like, no, first see how all living beings are equal. And if you read in the 12th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, it talks about Krishna's describing how someone becomes very dear to me. And you'll find it's very, because he doesn't really, he talks about becoming free from duality. That's really kind of the theme. And there's a string of about 10 verses where one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. So this, if you're going to drive to New York, first you have to go to whatever, St. Louis. So our ultimate goal may be, full God realization, but first we have to come to this point of equanimity towards all living beings, understanding that they are part and parcel of God. And if we're not treating, you could say, the children of God, just like if you're walking down the street and some guy's walking with his kid and you walk up and spit in the kid's face, what do you think the father's going to think? How a relationship with the father if you spit in the kid's face? So how are we going to understand God if we're treating the children of God, with disrespect or animosity or hatred? So we see the world's condition where the polarization of the world is pain, and it's just this. It's such a unwholesome. And it's such an unwholesome state of the world right now, and we all individually can be a light in the world. This darkness that's enveloped the world, we all have within us the potential to illuminate the darkness if we can just stay focused on spiritual goals. I'm gonna wrap it up there. And if anybody has any reflections or questions, yes.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yes.
Thank Thank you so much for speaking today. It was exactly what I wanted and needed to hear, and it coincides perfectly with something that I was listening to earlier when we were talking about the programming of the mind through our conditioning as children. It's as simple as when you get a song that you don't like stuck in your head. And that is how we were programmed as children in our environments. And so when you think about a song that maybe you've heard a bunch of times on the radio that you don't particularly care for, and then it's stuck in your mind, that's that rut that's being created. And to come and sit here today and hear this, it kind of took my personal daily lesson and made it whole. So thank you.
Yeah, well put.
So, as you go and experience these illusions and you start to peel them away, and you begin to see the material world from an outsider, and you feel kind of left out a little bit, how do you recommend you manage that when you're living in this world and it's almost hurtful and sad to see how everything else is playing out?
So you're saying when you become you're peeling back some of the layers and you're getting out of the illusion, and then you see the darkness, and you have to navigate that darkness. Is that the question?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So I was getting my tattoo finished today, and I was at the shop, and it's a very violent, environment. They're playing this music. People are cursing. They're talking about all kinds of inappropriate things, and you're just sitting there, and it was disturbing to hear and be in that environment. And when my friend group has diminished a lot since I started coming here, and you still see them in this very deep illusion of material life. And then you kind of feel like an outsider a little bit, and then you're really sad for the state.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, that compassion. In Sanskrit, the word is anukampan. Kampan means to shiver, like in the Gurvastaka prayers that we sing every morning. Romancha kampa shru, spiritual masters. In ecstasy is shivering, but there's also a type of shivering when you're in fear or distress, trembling. And anu means to follow, so anukampan means to feel the suffering of others as your own, or to feel the happiness of someone else as your own. That's a good thing. But how do we not, get drawn into that? That requires some fortification. That's what the spiritual practice is. That's what sadhana is. And we have our daily sadhana of chanting mantras, Hare Krishna mantra, the kirtans. You don't have to necessarily come to the temple. You can make your home a temple. You can have pictures of Krishna. You can make offerings to, on the altar, incense, flowers, your foodstuffs. These are all that will fortify us, will give us spiritual strength, so that when we do enter into those environments, we'll remain, you will have spiritual strength, to not be, but sometimes, you just have to, avoid, if it's very dark, you have to just avoid it, and like you said, some of your circle of friends may be closing, but were they really friends? Am I giving up friends, or I'm actually, stepping into, a new reality where I can develop new friendships, and then because you can't give up something if you don't have something positive to replace it with. If we're that would be like you're in the void. You have to replace. Prabhupada gave an example. We're in this room now, but if we're going to give up sitting here, we have to go sit somewhere else. So if does that help?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's very natural that when people take up seriously spiritual practice, they start to realize, wow, I got to be careful about who just like when we were children, if you were hanging out with some troublemaker in the neighborhood, your mother would say, I don't want you hanging around with that kid. He's a bad influence on you. So our association, is we have to be cautious, but sometimes, you can't avoid it, but, so yeah, we have to fortify ourselves with spiritual vitamins.
I was sitting in the chair and I was doing my yapa while I was sitting there. I was like, wow, they'll just, they made fun of me. It was really hurtful. Because they were making fun of me. I was sitting there and you're like, you feel very, you're like, oh my gosh, do I even belong in this world anymore? The only time I feel good is when I'm here or in my home where I have made my own temple.
Well, your challenges are not, don't feel like the Lone Ranger, as they say. If you're making efforts to, when you can have good association, I mean, we could, with the internet now, you can always, fortify ourselves with good association, spiritual practitioners online. There's podcasts, there's classes, there's kirtans, and maybe like sometimes when I used to go to a public gym, I would have a little MP3 player and I'd be playing kirtans and listening to lectures. When I was in the gym, and they were blasting, whatever kind of music. And I was in my own little, bubble listening to transcendental sound vibration. So, I mean, that's one thing is to, always sort of keep, or, you're driving in your car, you can have kirtan playing and the times that, we are, sort of stuck, we can take, we can pray to Krishna, like, please protect me. Prahlad Maharaj, a great devotee, says, I'm not afraid of anything except forgetting you. Because forgetting you, I mean, like we're losing our connection with God. So sometimes being in an awkward situation can really evoke a sense of desperation. My Lord, protect me. Queen Kunti, a great lady devotee, she said, let these calamities come again and again because they force me to think of you, to take shelter of you. So that's another way we can deal with challenging situations is that look at it as impetus to take shelter of Krishna. Because there's a famous verse that says, Padam padam yadvi padam vitesham. In the material world, there's danger at every step. But samasita dye padapala vaplavam. But one who's taken shelter of the boat, of the lotus feet of the Lord, the ocean of material existence shrinks to the size of the water contained in a cat's hoof print. You can easily cross over it. So if we're taking shelter of Krishna, and then you said they're making fun of you or something like that, well, it's a good opportunity to practice humility. Lord Chaitanya, he says we should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, ready to give all respect to others, not looking for respect ourselves. In that state of mind, you can chant with a lot of sincerity. So sometimes these situations, if we see that Krishna is the cause of all causes, He's behind everything. The immediate cause is not, he says, don't become angry at the instrument of your own karma. You know, the immediate cause, you know, we have to look behind to the remote cause. Did you have something?
I was just.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know where the prasadam is. It's already 8. Is that clock right?
Yeah.
A little delayed in the prasadam. I'm sorry for yakking so much, but if you want to visit with friends, break into your, you know, catch up with your friends, feel free. You don't have to sit here and listen to my monologue here forever. Anything else? Anyone?
We appreciate
Yeah, thank you.
your mom's.
Well, you're like Radhanath Maharaj was giving a talk, and he said, I feel like I'm in a garden with all these lotus-like faces. It's like so many flowers, you know, sincere people who are sincere in the spiritual path. You just see it in the faces, you know. It's very it's beautiful to be in the association of sincere spiritual practitioners. And there it is. Prasadam ki jai. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I was excited when I saw the news.
And I thought you would be here, so I was excited to see you, because I know you're real serious about this. What is it? Kitchery?
It's like kitchery salad and cake. And
Yeah, I'll just take a plate home.
yep.
Yeah, Alan, thanks for coming. Oh, Govinda. Yeah, I was really.
And she ran outside. Yes.
Yeah, in the middle of that Texas parlor,
I feel like I
a
was
better word.
treading water.
Just to go, Hare Krishna!
Oh, that's
To share all their stuff.
So yes, but it's.
You get a busy day tomorrow, you said.
So is that you said the new tattoos, is that just yours?
Yeah, not so much. I get that too, but
Yeah.
Oh, that's your town?
Oh, yeah, right there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You do them,
Yeah. I used to work in shops that were like that for a long time. I have to quit my job. Well, I went to this spot by early on. Krishna was an hour and Krishna was saying, hey, don't stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And I was
there's
like, oh man, that's not what I but I still haven't really seen it.
That's good. Yeah, yeah. great aneurysm, which is
I went to
3 days ago, and
you
you just became
How about-
yeah, so it's okay. It's for all spiritual aspects of why.
Still,
But it's yeah, so it's Arizona, subsidized housing.
people that have really bad.
Well, we're for it.
But then over time, I realized that you can actually do it. You know, for a long time, I realized that.
Let me meditate on it.
Okay, every day, every morning.
Kind of hungry. I usually not eat too much.
Go to work. You get tattoos, people, all my coworkers. Really, like, it was probably like,